Welcome to Rebel Without Applause, where we enthusiastically explore the intersection of sports, entertainment, and culture. I'm your host, Maurice Bob, and today we have a very special guest on the line. He is a two-time Grammy Award-winning drummer who has played with everyone from former NBA player Wayman Tisdale to Kelis, to Angie Stone, Jermaine Dupri, and most recently, hip-hop star Lecrae. He's also a producer in his own right with two albums of his own, titled Heard Not Seen. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Nate the Beat Breaker Robinson to the program.
What's up, bro?
How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Happy to be here. Happy to be alive.
Exactly. Very happy to be alive. How's Atlanta treating you?
It's hot, but it's good. You know what I mean? It's good. But yeah, it's definitely that time of the year where you earn that hot Atlanta name. Yes.
I forgot about Hot Atlanta. It's been a while since I heard that. Hot Atlanta.
I mean, it ain't Houston humid hot, but it's scorching out there right now.
It'll get you.
Yeah, you're gonna come inside pretty quick.
Get that AC going.
Yeah, man.
Well, yeah, good to see you, man. Glad to hear you're doing well. Just to dive on in, program's called Rebel Without Applause, as you know. Yeah. And I like to flip that. And, can you tell me about, the most rebellious moment, in your lifetime that you can remember?
Let me see. My mama would probably say a whole lot. I can go with my mom and them. I come from a pretty traditional, straightforward home. You know what I'm saying? And both my parents grew up in the projects, and you know what I'm saying. They fought and scraped for everything. So they wanted me to take what they figured was going to be like the easiest path that they were trying to create for me, which is, go to college, go get a job, 401k, just boom, boom, boom. So from a pretty early on, it was clear that I was kind of running in some creative spaces, and that's what really had my attention. And I think that that scared the mess out of them, because they didn't see how that was going to be like that stable thing that I needed, that they were trying to, prepare for me. And so yeah, I had to kind of push hard against what they wanted me to go after, or what they thought was best, in order for me to get to where I want to get to, because it wasn't lining up with what they thought was best for me. Which I appreciate it too, because I know I understand exactly where they were coming from. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I definitely had to rebel pretty tough, because they wasn't trying to hear that. You know what I'm saying?
I think that's all you could do as a parent, is to, set your child up for success, give them everything that they need, support them, and then let them have an opportunity to choose whatever path, it is. It's your job to say, okay, let's try this, let's try this, let's try this, and kind of see what sticks. And then once something sticks, you have to support them.
And to their credit, regardless of whether they always agreed, they still have my back. You know what I'm saying? They still supported me the same way. They bought me drums, even though they didn't want to hear them. I had the support. I still got their support. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely can't make it sound like they weren't in my corner still. It just, we had a little moment of friction trying to get here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. What made you pick up the sticks for the first time and start, banging on drums? What drove you there?
I don't even know, man. I was just attracted to it, from the time I was a real young kid. So just being in church, I would just gravitate straight to the drums. You know what I'm saying? Nothing else got my attention. It was either running after the drums or trying to go to sleep. That was the thing that just got me. So yeah, I don't really have any recollection for real of not just being enthralled with music in some kind of way. That's just what it was since before I had a choice in it.
It's interesting that, if you look at a lot of people's musical careers, the genesis of it started, in the church. What does that say about the church, where it fosters such a creative, path musically?
Yeah. I mean, couple things. One, I mean, not to knock anybody, but it's something real special in the Black church, like just with just Black people's like musical giftings. You know what I'm saying? Like from the old mother in the church that can play the piano. Like I don't know, that's just one of the things that I think God just kind of dipped us in. Is just some musical ability. Most everybody can sing a little bit, you know. So the choirs be amazing because you got 60 people and all of them have some kind of, you know, musical ability. So I think there's just some there's some DNA involved, you know what I'm saying? And like that's something that you can't teach. But then when you put that, you know, in a little incubator like a church and kids grow up in it and man, it's just it's a very it's very inspired, you know what I'm saying? Like it's not stoic where you're just saying, here's a piece of paper, read the music. It's like that whatever you did on Thursday in rehearsal can totally change on Sunday. Like it's just always improvised, you know, it's always inspired by something, whatever that something might be, you know, just whatever's happening in the church service that, you know, particular day. Like there's just an education that you get there that you can't get in the band room. And so I think those things definitely are what makes a lot of those people you talk about that come out of the church, like it makes them phenomenal, like not just good at what they do, but it's just a little extra sauce that you can't get nowhere else, you know.
And it seems like, you know, the two pieces are married, you know, the spirituality and also the musicality, especially like you said in the Black church. Do you feel like faith is really tough without that connection to music?
No, I wouldn't say that. You know, I think it's definitely, you know, it's a part of what we do in the Black church. Like it's a real part of what we do in the Black church. But, you know, you got to try to at some point get to a place where you don't have to have an organ in order for you to, you know, be able to focus on God. Like, because that's when you really need God. Most of the time, it ain't no organ nowhere around. Like it ain't no choir nowhere around. Like so,
Yeah, definitely.
You got to get to that point. But in the church itself, yeah, it's definitely they are seriously tied together. And you know, again, like that's one of those things you can't really teach, but you have musicians who learn how to. I don't want to use the word manipulate. That's not really the right word I want to use. They learn how to harness like those emotional things that are happening, those spiritual things, and they learn how to like somehow put it into an instrument. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And that's how you can have like an organ player that can move a whole church. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a different kind of education.
Okay, that makes sense. You know, so you took what you learned, you know, and kind of cultivated in the church, and you know, you took that with you, you know, throughout your life. What was the, I guess, turning point for you when you started kind of getting into that professional space, you know, as a musician?
It was pretty young, man. Like in high school, you know what I'm saying? I started. It started at one of the churches where I was playing when I was in high school. I think I started there when I was like 15, I think. And everybody who was anybody in like the local music scene in Houston was coming through this church. So getting to connect with them, I started to learn a little bit more about what they did outside of the church. And so I just started exploring. I started, you know, my mom, it was cool letting me hang out, you know, with some of the older people. And so I would go out to spots where I was way too young to be, but, you know, dudes would sneak me in or whatever. And so I just started kind of getting a feel for what it was like in the real world, you know what I'm saying? And then I would have an opportunity to like jump on the drums and play a song or whatever. And dudes like, oh man, little dudes can play. And so then I just started the networking process. So it all happened young, but you know, it's just like networking and it step by step until you get where you're going. And then you you definitely gotta be able to show and prove when this, you know, you get an opportunity to. And so I was decent at a young age and it worked out for me, you know what I'm saying?
Okay, and then you you, as you say, took your talents to PV.
Yeah.
What was that like? What was that experience like?
Man, that was for one, it was college. You know what I mean? So just for anybody, college it's just a big step. You know what I mean? So I was a young dad, already a kid when I got to college. So that was a crazy thing in itself. But like just learning how to be on my own and learning how to manage being a dad, and a student, and then I was in the band. So that was the band. Prairie View, man, is like, it's still really, really solid. When I got there, I think it was a special time. We had like amazing directors. The drum section, the box was like the best in the nation. And a lot of that had, those reasons why they were so good happened Monday through Friday, and you just saw the output on Saturday. But just amazing teachers that really put us, in the right frame of mind, taught us how to work hard, taught us how to be excellent at what we do. And man, that grew me up. Like that time taught me like the X's and O's. Like this is how you go about doing what you do. You know what I mean? And I can take that and get better on my own, but learning like this is how you go about your work. This is, you know what I mean? This is how excellence is produced. And those things don't have nothing to do with playing your instrument. You know what I mean? It's mental, and it's organizational and discipline. You know what I'm saying? So like those lessons stick with me till I die. Like they apply to everything. And I definitely learned a lot of that there. You know what I'm saying? And I'm grateful for that time.
So college, a lot of people associate college with going to, get a degree in a certain discipline, whether it be, mathematics or English or whatever the case may be. But in truth, when you go to college, you learn how to learn, and you learn, yourself, really. You become this sort of case study where, okay, here I am away from what I know. I'm going to have to juggle these things. I mean, you were a perfect example. You juggled so much, being a new father, classes, the band, and everything else. Was that a major part in grooming who you are and how you think, having to juggle so many things and kind of learn on the fly?
Absolutely. Like I said, I have to apply those lessons every day, because like that's what my life still feels like now. It's like I have 3 daughters, and I got a career, and I have a wife, and you know what I mean? And I'm trying to build new things. So trying to find that balance is crazy, but that's exactly why I learned how to do it and learn how to do it. You know what I'm saying?
So what was the drum line like where you were PV? Did you represent? Did y'all go and shut things down?
To this day, I'm still like yet to see anybody better. And I'm not saying that from a biased place, like, because I give dudes their props. Like there's some really good drum lines out there right now, but it was something special. I think timing had a lot to do with it, because like we were right at the end of that era where there weren't any cell phones, like the internet was brand new. So we put so much of ourselves into like doing that. You know what I mean? It was just a different level of mentality. Like now the kids are like way more talented than as a whole than we were. Cause we had dudes that never took drum lessons before, you know what I mean? But they were just soldiers, with their mentality. So we put in so much work, and as a unit, like we were amazing. You know what I mean? There was a period in the 90s of about 10, 12 years where nobody in the nation could touch the box. And anybody will tell you who know. Like, you know.
So y'all came in and shut it down every time you touch the field.
We was the Bulls, man. Like we was the 90s Bulls. Here's what it is.
Yeah, that's got to be special there. There's nothing like the Black experience when you go through that.
Yeah, man, it's a cool thing, and like we still are off like family right now. We still rooting for the younger generation, and like I said, these are young dudes, man. They're talented, and so we're still rooting for them. It's a big family.
So and PV serves as a springboard for your professional career, correct? And you get
Yeah.
your first gig. Can you talk about that and how that came about?
Yeah, man. I was, like I said, I was flirting, with the club scene and whatnot. So I'm, hour away at PV, doing my thing and driving to Houston, trying to, network and, keep planting my seeds like that. And one day I was at Prairie View in class, and I got a call from my buddy, man, and the opportunity opened up to play for Wayman Tisdale. And it meant a lot. It meant having to leave school, because I'm pretty positive this was the top of the semester. So it's probably right around this time, late August. So it meant leaving school. It meant figuring out the situation with my kid. It meant leaving my band family and leaving them out cold, because we've been preparing all summer to do our thing. At this point, I'm an upperclassman, so people really depending on me, and so it meant walking out on that. But it also meant this is the opportunity. I know in my college career, I'm looking at another year of doing this, maybe with no paycheck, just a small scholarship, or I can start trying to open up the door for the next 30 years, So I had to go on and take that opportunity, man. I left school and started running. And then, I kept coming back to school trying to finish when I was not on the road, but that definitely opened up the floodgates. And, it's been 20 years now.
Now, we know Wayman as a, former NBA player, mm-hmm. and he transitioned to jazz. What was that like, being part of a jazz troupe and, touring and interacting with fans and things? Was that what you expected?
It was a little bit weird, because I was young. I was maybe 19, 20, I think. And, at that time, Wayman was probably 35, 36, maybe older. And he's playing smooth jazz. So the audience for that is in the 35 to 65 range. You know what I'm saying?
A lot of cougars.
A lot of cougars. A lot of empty nesters out on the date. You know what I'm saying? I was definitely always the youngest person by far in every single room we were in. So that was kind of weird, but it was also good, because I learned from seasoned people. You know what I'm saying? So, Wayman wasn't out there trying to, run up the tab on everything and trying to get a bunch of notches in his belt. He was constantly talking to me about making good decisions, or, do this with your money that you're getting right now. Encouraging me, hey, I see you, I left school, but, when tour stopped, you should think about keeping up. Try to finish. So, it was constantly in my ear with good information. And that was a good thing for me being so young, because I went from having good leaders at school, at Prairie View, good band directors and people that really cared about me, to that situation where I was around another, just a good, solid man that was willing to pour into me and try to help, keep continuing raising me, basically. You know what I mean? It's like I had a cool uncle.
Did he ever tell you any funny stories? Especially I imagine he had two different types of fame. There's a different kind of fame with being a professional athlete, and then now he's a musician. Did he ever give you kind of any clues to the difference that he saw?
Man, he didn't. It was crazy, because he didn't really, once he was done playing basketball, it was almost like it never existed. You know what I mean? He didn't really talk about basketball a whole lot. He just was really, really, really into music. And I think, from getting to know him, it seems like that was where his passion really was music. He just had the physical ability, so he took advantage of him. But he grew up playing bass in his dad's church when he was young. And I think he just really, really cared about music. So when I got around him, it was all music. It was studio in the house, he had a basketball go outside, but he really was 100% music. I think the only thing I remember him talking about, one day we were riding in Tulsa, and he was telling me about getting drafted and the first things that he bought. You know what I mean? And that was cool listening to him talk about he was a number one pick. So
oh yeah, you got some money to spend, money to burn.
yeah, so he told me about like Benz that he bought. He bought a house, and like I remember that conversation, and then like I don't remember all the details, but I just remember being like, dang, like these dudes is paid for real. You know what I mean? He was just rattling off a list of stuff that he bought, and he's pretty financially savvy, so I know he didn't just go crazy, but he had that much money where he could buy all of that just to kind of treat himself, you know.
Yeah, one day you don't have it, to the next day you have so many zeros you can't even keep up.
Yeah,
that's a crazy dynamic.
Yeah, bro.
What was I guess the best lesson you took from working with him?
Probably, man, it was some fatherhood things. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was having some real issues. We just say it like that, real lightly. I was having some real issues with my kid's mom at that time, and he was open and an ear for me to kind of bounce some stuff off. And I remember sitting down a couple times at his kitchen table, and he would just encourage me like to keep showing up. You know what I'm saying? And I probably would have did that anyway, but it was crucial at the time when he did it, because like I'm at the height of the frustration, I'm getting the phone calls, and he happened to be the person that's right there that I'm with, and his advice to me was solid. And I remember feeling real like confident after one of those talks, like, okay, you know what, like she's gonna try her best to keep me away, and I'm just gonna be at your doorstep every day. Like you're just gonna have a pest in your life. But he affirmed that, you know what I'm saying? And he had, I think they got 4 or 5 kids, like I would be at his house and just watching him like just be a dad. Like it was just inspiring, you know what I mean? Like just stay in the fight. Him and his wife both, Regina, man, they were in my corner, you know what I'm saying? That was important to me at that moment, you know.
So he was just a good example all the way around, musically, family-wise, man. Wow. It's really important to have somebody like that early on.
Yeah, man. And like I said, I got a great dad. Like, love my dad. Great dad. Best in the world. But just as you start to get older, and my dad ain't with me when I'm trying to run around the country and trying to do this stuff. So the people, you're still going to be the sum total of the people that you're around. So it was great for me to be, especially in the world of music, that is, it can lots of sex, drugs, and rock and roll ain't just a thing. You know what I'm saying? It became a thing for a reason. So, it's just good to be around solid people, man, that can help you navigate and learn how to be you and be right in the middle of all of this,
Totally. So after you worked with Wayman, you went on to work with a very unique artist, Kelis.
Yeah.
What was that like? I mean, because she has such a eclectic persona.
Yeah.
And it feels like we don't even really know who she is. What was that like?
Man, musically it was fun because of that. You know what I mean? Like it's the approach to the music is so unique, and you can't help but have fun playing the music. And then like Pharrell did most of that stuff from the era when I was playing. So he's my favorite. You know what I mean? It was just, I get to mock his mind every day and go at it when I'm playing. So that was, musically was super dope. And like the spaces that we would end up playing shows were cool too, because she was such an alternative audience. So like we'd be on a festival with rock bands and, you know what I mean? Like all these different kind of artists. So it was cool to experience like the world. Everything I did with her was like European and Australian, New Zealand, that type of thing. So I experienced the world with a real eclectic kind of world artist. So yeah, that was the best part.
So like, you mentioned Pharrell. Did that challenge you as far as, musically trying to keep up with, whatever tracks that he laid down?
Yeah, I mean, it was dope because like I'm playing the drums, but I'm still always studying everything as a producer. You know what I mean? Because that's also part of what I do. So, it's cool to listen and study what Pharrell is doing while I'm having to interpret it and play it on the drums. So I'm getting 2 for 1,
That's dope to kind of go in his footsteps. Like, you know, so did you learn anything from some of the, because I imagine if you're playing with rock bands, you know, they have drummers and they're known for, you know, being a drummer.
Yeah.
You know, did you pick up anything from them, whether it be, you know, how to be a better drummer or, you know, how to approach the craft?
The thing I learned most from that whole period when I was with her was I learned about being a little bit more of a showman, because that ain't really my thing. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm just a chill dude. So I'm gonna play the music. I'm gonna play the hell out of it, but I ain't really like here to, you know, swing my hair and do backflips. That's just kind of not my thing. But because of the spaces that she was in, like she needed to be a little bit more of a show kind of artist. You know what I mean? So they would ask me to be a little bit more, you know, in that direction, and that was something I had to learn because it just ain't natural. You know what I mean? But yeah, definitely being in those environments where it was, you know, all these huge rock bands and all of that. Like I got to watch how they just approach the stage, how they work it, and then I had to come up in that same show. So it's like, all right, let me bring my best energy to the stage too. You know.
So showmanship was the biggest piece.
Yeah, I think up until that point, I don't even think I know. Up until that point, I hadn't done anything that was at that level. You know, like even working with Wayman, it's the crowd size, the production value, everything is still it's still pro. Don't get me wrong, but there's just these levels, right? So we're talking with Wayman, you might be doing a club that is a 1,000-seater or something like that. You do some festivals like jazz festivals, but there's when you're with Kelis and you're out in the middle of the countryside and you're doing the Virgin Music Festival and there's 100,000 people and huge screens everywhere, and that's just a whole different level. So being able to bring that energy at that level it requires you to, you know, kind of go there if you ain't done it before. You know what I'm saying? So that was definitely a learning experience.
Well, did you ever get a chance to kind of get to know her a little bit?
I mean, we live on the bus together, so yeah, you get to know people when you're on tour, whether you want to or not, unless you are, you know, touring with a Beyonce or a Jay-Z or something who's on a jet every day and you're on a bus. But outside of that, if you're living on a bus together, man, yeah, you get to know each other pretty intimately. You know what I mean?
What surprised you about her, you know, as you got to know
her? Probably the same thing that surprised me about all the artists I work with, like how they're just people. You know what I'm saying? They're just people. Like a lot of them. I mean, her in particular, it's just like, man, they get worn of the schedule every day. You get worn of having to give yourself to everybody, and so you just kind of see them on the bus trying to recharge their battery and you know, go from the regular person to being this superhuman person that everybody has expectations on. You know, yeah, she's regular, man.
Was she going through the whole Nas thing during that time?
Yeah. That was also like you're just regular moment, because like I'm going through the same thing on the other end of my phone, trying to, you know, deal with a baby's mom and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, man, they were having real human problems, and you could hear them working those problems out sometimes. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I'm an expert in my business, so
I think you have to be.
Yeah, man, for sure. For sure. I wasn't in that, but it was definitely present. You know, just real human problems.
So is that what made you move to you know, Atlanta, or spend more time in Atlanta? The opportunities you were getting with her and like a Jermaine Dupri?
Yeah, that it started with Kelis. That was they were based here, so they were rehearsing here, and all that work was here. So I had to come here to do rehearsals before we would go out on the road, you know. And I just decided it was the right step for me to come to Atlanta to try to attack my goals, you know. So that led to the Jermaine Dupri's and, you know, all the other Atlanta work.
What was it like working with him? Because he's been at it since he was a kid.
Yeah.
Major level too.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I would say when I was with him, that's when he was dating Janet Jackson. So I
Oh
got to see,
wow.
yeah, I got to see Janet at the show one time. That was interesting. She looked like she ain't aged at all. Like that was crazy. It was like seeing Penny on Good Times. You know what I mean?
She has this certain aura about her. I mean, did you feel
Oh,
that when
yeah,
you saw her?
absolutely. Like she ain't real.
Wow.
Yeah. She's like she's the like the anomaly. She's probably the artist that I went around and I didn't have that feeling like, oh, she's normal. I ain't had that. I was like, nah, she's Janet Jackson. Like
Yeah, well, she is a Jackson. They're music royalty.
she did. But it was dope being with him. Like I did a bunch of like work for some of the artists that he was trying to break at that time. So I only worked with him a few times because he didn't really release a bunch of music at that time, but he was trying to break other artists. So it was cool just being around, just watching how he works. You know what I mean? And seeing like their work ethic is crazy. Like they put in real hours. It ain't no accident where they get to. You know?
So now you're at a point in your career where you've done the jazz thing and you've done alternative music, if you want to call it that, and working with Jermaine Dupri. Are you starting to see yourself as kind of identify yourself as a drummer? Like, did you see yourself more like as a Questlove type drummer, or like the Mr. Funky drummer himself, Clyde Stubblefield?
I mean, both of them are heavy influences into how I want to, approach the drums for sure. But man, I've always tried to approach it. I've always tried to come at like the business like I'm not just a drummer. You know what I'm saying? And not that that's a bad thing at all, because I love what I do and I don't plan on stopping no time soon. But I always wanted to be a creator. You know what I'm saying? So I want to be always in the seat of producing music. I always want to be in the seat of finding and breaking new artists. So I've always been on the drum seat, but looking at the big picture and looking at the whole situation and figuring like, where do I plug into this at the next level too? You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So yeah, that's, I try to keep those in my mind almost as two separate places. You know what I mean? Because like I said, the drum thing, playing music, being a musician, that's as natural to me as breathing. So I'm going to always do that. But I also I'm a businessman, you know what I mean? So I'm always thinking, what is my next step and how do I build here? So, I'm Questlove when I'm on the drum throne. And I mean, he's a good model because he also is a really smart businessman as well. He's created himself as an entity and not just a drummer, And so, yeah, I definitely, I'm trying to be in his footsteps. No doubt. I got a chance to tell him that too, which was dope. Like when we did Fallon, I got to meet him in the bathroom. It was a weird meeting because he and he didn't feel good, so he had tissue like blowing his nose and whatnot. So I can't shake his hand, but it was dope to just be able to tell him like, man, I'm a student. You know what I'm saying? So that was dope. Awkward circumstances, but it was dope.
Hey, you gotta take your opportunities when they come, no matter how awkward they might be.
Yeah.
So you went from, I guess you could say, normal secular, music, and your next step was with Lecrae, Christian rapper. Well, that's what we've kind of designated him as.
Right.
How did that opportunity come about?
Man, just like everything else, it was at some point your networking it kind of opens the door. So when they were looking to just kind of add to their production value. They had done a few tours already. They were building, this was like back in 2010. They were building their touring thing, it was growing. They wanted to add some production value, so they wanted to add a musician. They decided on a drummer, so then they were like, well, who do we call it? We don't know anybody. And it just so happens that at that time I was helping out one of my homies at a church plant here in Atlanta, and they were all kind of part of that church plant. They all moved here from Dallas, and so they were starting this church together, and it was kind of a young church, a progressive church, a hip hop church, if you will, but a hip hop, influenced church, but not necessarily the music and nothing like that. But it was just that young blood, that new progressive Christian. And so I was there helping with the music, and so they were like, well, let's call this dude who's been at the church. They didn't know me. I didn't know them. They called me and I was like, I don't know. I didn't say no outright, but I was like, man, I don't know. Like, I was super skeptical because, for one, it was Christian rap, and everything I had heard up to that point was really trash, honestly. I respect the mission, but musically it was just not something I would want to attach to, And so I decided to do it because the more I talked to the guy who was, involved with giving me all the details, the more I understood that, number one, they were actually a viable entity. You know what I mean? Because in my mind, I was like, bro, we're gonna get out here on the road and get stuck in some city because some promoter didn't pay. Like, in my mind, I'm like, they can't be at the level to support a 30-something city tour. They got to be dreaming, or just kind of pipe dreaming and trying to sell me on a pipe dream, which happens in this business sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. At this point, I'm like, no, I'm way too mature and smart and experienced to go down that path. So I was like dumb skeptical, you know what I mean? And the more I did my research, the more I realized, okay, they're actually a budding, business, and they're doing their thing. So, I feel better about that part. And then I noticed that they were a nice, individually, they all were seem to be really good dudes, and they seem to be kind of close knit together. And I was like, man, cool. I'll buy into that, because at that time, and I had been in Atlanta for about 4 or 5 years. And, when you move to other cities like this, especially somebody like me, I'm a little bit introverted. I'm a lot introverted, actually. But I work in the city, but I really didn't kind of connect with people, much.
Okay.
So it just felt like I just lived here. And I was like, cool, this is an opportunity for me to plug in with some dudes that seem to be really good dudes, and just see how that goes. And it was a good fit. It worked. And to this day, man, those, all of them, the whole crew, they my brothers, you know what I'm saying? And so yeah, it worked out, but it almost never happened, for real.
So, once you got to going, and, I guess you hear Lecrae rapping,
yeah.
What was your thoughts as far as, when you first heard him, and where he could go with it?
Yeah. Once we got in rehearsals and stuff, and I'm playing this stuff, 40 times a day, and actually listening to it, then I started to realize, they actually, all these dudes are really good artists too. And I was hearing some of the new material that was going to be coming later on that year, and I was like, okay, they're putting a lot of work into their production value too. They want to be excellent. And, by the time we hit the road and got started, I was pretty much bought into the whole situation, because I saw we got a lot in common. You know what I mean? That same excellence I want to pursue, I get to be around it and get to be inspired by it, and just kind of get to be a part of it. So yeah, I was locked in, you know what I mean? And then after that tour, it didn't take me long to realize what Lecrae's mission really was, you know what I mean? Which is not necessarily the church, and so I could really lock arms with that too, because that's just who I am. I grew up in the church, but I really care more about the people who ain't in the church, you know what I'm saying? So I realized that was his mission too. So it was easy for me to buy into it. You know what I mean?
What was the difference? What was the biggest difference to you, comparatively? Here you had played with a Kelis and that, more secular pop music, and here it's a whole different lane of Christian music.
Yeah.
Was that very, how did you come to understand the differences, as you moved along?
I mean, one of the major differences has got to be just everything surrounding it. You know what I mean? So like the fans are a lot different, and which can be good and bad. Like they're loyal, but they tend to just be kind of judgmental, and it can get crazy sometimes. So that was different. It was also different having people like care about your family and care about you off the stage and what you got going on, and make those things like more important than the stage and more important than the show. In the secular world, and it ain't just secular world, honestly. I'll just say with certain artists, because it's all over the board. With certain artists, you're just a hired gun. You're there to do a job. You can't do it. Cool, move on to the next person. But I felt valued in this situation and felt like we care about you as a person, and we care about you as a husband and you as a dad, like just the whole nine. So that's a huge difference.
It seems like it seems kind of just from the outside looking in, it's kind of hard to pinpoint how that lane could be financially viable. Did you see kind of where a Christian musician or a Christian rapper, how they could be, how they can get some success, monetarily?
Like I said in the beginning, it didn't really make sense to me at all. Like I wasn't familiar with the market. I just didn't get it at all. But I was familiar with the Christian space, so I knew that there's definitely a Christian music market, and I definitely know that there's people making really good money. Once I started to be around, then I got a much better vision of how that whole they were really in like very, very integral. They weren't like the trailblazer, but they were very integral in making the space that they are in right now. So they kind of created a space that wasn't really there before. And that started, a lot of that had to do with the right timing. You know what I mean? There was some Christian rap that was taking place on the East Coast and the West Coast, but they were like the first label to really dig into like the Southern sound. You know what I mean? And
okay.
And that was popping then. It was Yin Yang Twins. It was the whole Atlanta thing. That's when Atlanta got on a roll, So they were locked in with that era of music. It was also right at the end of the hard copy, like CD era. So people were buying music for real. So like, they just created a market. They were able to financially build up, a base, so that way they could keep on rolling. And so yeah, a lot of that had to do with timing. A lot of it had to do with just being smart, and a lot of it had to do with seeing a need and meeting that need. So real smart business people, man. Like I've definitely enjoyed being close to just watch how they run their label, because they do an amazing job.
What about the actual fandom? Like, when you out on the road touring, with a Lecrae, what are the fans like, and what are like the shows like?
The fans are cool. Like they're definitely like, they're loyal, which is dope. They're real fans, I will say one of the things that I've not enjoyed is the way that they tend to be, like I said, they're kind of unforgiving, So they look at, and it ain't just Christian artists, it's pastors and whoever, but they kind of look and treat these people like they are supposed to be perfect, So they're quick to tear you down if something that they deem less than perfect happens, and that can be anything. You know what I mean? It can be something that you say, something you wear. It could be anything. So like that part is not cool. Like I've learned from watching like a lot of how and it's not all of them. It's just definitely it's a small group of fans, but I've learned from watching how they move. I'm like, okay, cool, I get it now. Those are the people that killed Jesus. You know what I mean? Like the ones who show up at church every week, but they really are, at heart they're super judgmental and they're like looking to tear people down and not looking at themselves as being less than perfect and allowing that to bleed over into giving other people grace. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah, but like, you know, on a large scale, they're really loyal and like they're locked in. And because of that, the shows are crazy. Like, especially in the right cities that know how to turn up. Like the shows can be like, it's no different than like a Travis Scott show, just minus the weed smoke and like the heavy drinking. Because sometimes there's some people who understand their liberties and they'll drink at the shows, but a lot of people don't. You know what I mean? So it's kind of, that's one of them weird things where I was like, man, I wish I would feel more free. Just understand, like, this, you know, there's a way to be, there's a way to be responsible. But yeah, the shows get live. I miss that right now, for real.
Yeah, the interaction, and especially if they're real fans, they probably know all the words of the songs. And
yeah, certain cities, man. Texas is always lit. Like all the Texas shows is crazy. Philly, like there's a bunch of markets that you can count on. DC, they're gonna go all the way in. And then there's other places that are like really super fans, but they're just more reserved because they're really reserved places. You know what I'm saying? And then some places will surprise you. Like you might be in Iowa somewhere and they'll tear the whole room up. You know?
Yeah, a lot of really devoted fans, and you can take that on a double entendre: devoted, but also devoted. So you guys also played, you know, Rock the Bells. Yeah. Obviously, those are all secular artists, you know, with secular fans. What was that experience like?
It was exciting, and it was you know, it was nerve-wracking too. But it was real dope, man, because like that was kind of, especially at that time, like Lecrae had decided to really go after. You know, a lot of people, this is where they start trying to throw darts at people. They want to say you're going mainstream, but it wasn't just going mainstream. It was really, he decided to take what he does and try to give it to a much broader audience and not just the church. You know what I'm saying? And so that was exciting because whenever you shoot out to do something and then you get a chance to do it, it's exciting, you know? But it was also like, when you're there, it's like, oh shoot, like this is what we asked for, and this is definitely gonna be tough, you know, because like I remember the San Francisco Rock the Bells, we went on right after Earl Sweatshirt, who, you know, he's like with the Odd Future Boys and Tyler the Creator, you know what I mean? Like couldn't be further apart from what we do, you know. And Earl Sweatshirt was up and rocking the crowd. They knew all the words, and it was, you know, and we was sitting there watching like, man, it's going to be different. As soon as we get up there, we know they don't know all our words. There's some people out here who are Lecrae fans or, you know, might be familiar with a song, but for the most part, we coming up here as the visiting team. You know what I'm saying? And
trying not to get booed.
Basically, or at least trying to, you want to make sure you grab their attention and make them walk away from it like, who's that? You know, and really nothing less than that. You know what I mean? Like we trying to really come here and really put it on you. So, you know, we spent a whole bunch of time in preparation, like trying to give the best show that we could to make sure that we grabbed the biggest, you know, net of people that we could get and, you know, talk to them like right where they are and in a way that they understand and without having to compromise nothing. And we did it. So like that was dope. And by the time the show was over, like we did our job. Like, you know, it was far from booze. It was making a bunch of fans, you know.
That has to feel good to kind of quote unquote turn a room, not that they were against you, but didn't know you. Yeah. And by the end of it, like, wow, who are these people? We need to go find more music from them.
Exactly. And that's a tough space. You know what I mean? I feel bad for like stand-up comedians because that's kind of what they walk into all the time unless the whole room knows who you are. Like you have to try to make these people laugh and you got a room full of skeptics because they really there to see whoever they know, whoever's the headliner. And you got a room full of people who waiting to boo you off the stage. You know, they're going to give you a chance. So it's like, go ahead, impress me. And if you can do that, then you make it, you know. And that was definitely one of those moments. And we've had a bunch of those moments, like, you know, the BET award stuff, the 106 and Park stuff. Like, it's been a bunch of times where we've been in that situation. And you gotta have the right music, which he does a great job of, you know, making great songs. And then we, as the music team, we just try to make sure we add to that music and do some things that are going to be familiar to the crowd. I mean, just be excellent on our instruments. That in itself will make people be like, man, they sound good, you know. So we just each individually try to bring our A game, and you got to win that crowd. Those are my favorite moments, you know.
Yeah, cream always rises to the top.
Yeah.
Did you see kind of the interaction with him and like some of the other major, you know, rap artists? Like, how did they receive him?
All the time. I mean, all the time, still to this day. Like, he's respected because, you know, people who know his story a little bit, they know, number one, they know like he's done all this independent. So you got to respect that. And then they know he's a dope artist. They know he's a, you know, dope rapper, and people respect the fact that he's strong about his convictions, but, you know, not trying to condemn nobody. So all I've seen is artists like rock with him and then end up connecting with him, and they make, you know, they have their own relationships, you know, and you know, there's a lot of trust that's built between him and a lot of your favorite artists, you know what I mean? And I think that's dope. That's properly using your influence, you know.
That's cool, because he can be somewhat like a spiritual coach or guide here and there for people.
Yeah,
for his peers anyway.
I know for sure that he's got that relationship with several, you know, big profile people. You know what I'm saying? And that's dope.
I know, you know, one of my favorite players, Stephen Curry. He's a big fan and proponent.
So we go through the Bay. If they there, he's at the show. You know, like, and that's dope. Like, that influence goes a long way. Go way past, you know, a song or a basketball game. You know?
Yeah, that's got to be dope to see up front. So, you know, so you've done all of these things for other artists, but, you know, you have your own projects, especially as a producer.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about your heard not seen? You know, I think I understand what the title means, but, you know, can you talk about that project and, you know, how you got there with it?
So I mean, I do music and I push myself forward as an artist, but I don't want to be the focus at all, ever. So, like, the albums that I've done, they exist to create a platform for other artists. You know what I mean? So some of those artists are upcomers who need, you know, the boost. And then some of those artists, like, I had a song with Lecrae on my last album. He didn't need me at all, but it was cool to hear him on a different type production. You know what I mean? So it was a lab for him to just come and do something different. And so I work with more established artists in that way, where, you know, I'm just putting them into a different room so that they can come up with something that's a little bit outside of what they normally do, you know. And
okay.
So yeah, that's my whole thing, man. As a quote unquote artist, I'm a producer, and I'm just trying to make space for these other artists and do really dope music and do really eclectic music, or for some different music, you know, from what their regular catalog sounds like. So yeah, that's the whole heard not seen thing. You know, I'm over here, I'm behind, and I ain't got to be out front. But I was definitely inspired by Timbaland a while back, man. Like, and Pharrell the same way. Which Pharrell is more of an artist; he put his voice forward. But I was inspired by both of them because they've done projects that are, you know, compilation projects where it's, you know, it's a Timbaland album, but he's just working with 8-9 different artists and creating vibes with them, you know. So that's what inspired me, man. And I've just done a couple, and I'm getting ready to release another one soon. Like, we're rolling out some singles for that right now. We got In My Lane that dropped out 2 weeks ago. Okay. We did a single with my man Eli Lefty. That's our newest artist. He's a genius, bro. Like I'm trying to be patient and just, let the world get to him when it happens. But he's a genius. Like it's going to be real stuff coming out from him.
So as a producer, when you run across artists like this, what's your job to sort of really give them the platform to succeed and be the artist that they should be?
First thing is what happens before anybody hears the music. So it's like helping them to create the best product possible, and for different artists, that means different things. Like for some artists, they're great writers, but they don't really understand how to put together, a song and record it. So they need some help just learning to be better recording artists. Some artists are great recording artists, but they aren't good writers. So it's trying to get them in the room with the right writers or, help them develop their own writing skills, So they all have like different things that need to take place in order to help them become the best artist, and that's when you're recording your product. And then after that, it's trying to just use my influence and use like the platform I have and the connections and, the resources I have to try to help get their product out to the market in the best way, So it's a two-pronged thing, and both of those are a process. It takes some real work.
So as a producer, would you say that you have a signature sound? Like I would know a Timberland beat, or I would know a Pharrell beat. Do you want to get to that point, or would you rather be kind of, have various, soundscapes?
I mean, so the truth about both of them is they are still, pretty eclectic. They can do a lot of things, but they still have a sound. There's something that lets you know, like, man, I'll know a Timberland beat or a Pharrell beat like anywhere, no matter what style it is, no matter, who the artist is. So, I mean, I definitely think I have that thing, when I'm listening to my music. There's something that connects it all to me, even though it's all, different and all over the place. I guess time will tell if the consumers and the masses feel that way. But I definitely, without trying to do the same thing over and over again, I definitely think there's a common thread in all my production.
Do you feel like the Houston sound kind of, makes its way into your production?
I wouldn't say like the actual Houston sound per se. Like, even though I have, of course, I'm from the South Side, so I've had to throw my little layups to screw, and I've screwed a bunch of vocals and that type of stuff. So I definitely pay my respect. But if anything, I would say what shows up is just the grit of the sound, really just the grit of like just the city and like in that era and where I'm from. So it is a certain way I want stuff to feel, but it won't necessarily be locked into a Houston sound, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, definitely.
I always want to feel like MLK and Belford, but that can be any kind of song.
Yeah, well, I guess the sound isn't necessarily a monolith, but Houston is known for screw, like you said, or certain beats like Mr. Lee, things like that. And you also have another, project that you're working on, Social Sessions.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, man. It was inspired by this pandemic. we leading up to the pandemic, we were doing events in Houston weekly that were, just platforms for emerging artists and giving them a place to showcase and be able to do original material and not just do cover songs, So the pandemic put a big hole in that. And so we were trying to figure out how do we continue that mission, because that's really like that's a movement, not necessarily just a thing we're trying to do with a club. We want to create opportunities to give these artists the chances that they need. You know what I mean? It's hard to get independent artists heard, and it's also hard to do original music like in the public, because when you go out in public, people want to hear stuff that they're familiar with. So, we like dead serious about trying to create that platform. So we decided to just create a virtual version of it. And the actual performances are all done live. We're all in the same room, but just no audience. And so, yeah, man, we just, we have 3 episodes that are available now. And, that's it, man. We're trying to create like the old Soul Train platform. You know what I'm saying? Where an artist could come through, they have a single that's, that they're trying to promote. They can come through, they can perform that for a live audience, and audience can learn a little bit more about the about the artist. You know what I mean? So performances, interviews, you just kind of get that interaction going with these young, well, I say young, but just upcoming artists, young in their artistry.
So would it be something you drop every week, or just when the opportunity?
Yeah, we the first couple we dropped in back-to-back weeks, and then we took a little break so we can release some music. So now we're gonna get back to dropping some more sessions, and then we're gonna be back to releasing some music. So it's gonna be kind of going in that rotation. We'll be dropping 2 to 3 episodes at a time, and then you can expect 2 or 3 more to come shortly after.
So it sounds like, just listening to you speak about it, you have a real passion for helping others, especially in this music space. Where does that come from?
Because I know how hard it is, and I had some people to open doors for me. So the right person who just needs an opportunity, I want to try to do my best to create those opportunities, and like you said, the cream will rise to the top. Like if they deserve it, when they show up on that platform, people are gonna be like, "Yo, that person is dope," and they're gonna buy in and support them. And so yeah, man, like that's just kind of how we want to see things happen,
Well, there's always a need for a platform or helping hand, but not everybody is willing to be that helping hand. So that says a lot about you and how you look, but not just at your blessings, but your ability to bless others. So you mentioned like how the pandemic has kind of thrown a curveball to all of our lives, and these are very turbulent times. What do you think the role that music plays in kind of helping us heal and maybe get out whatever message or next steps that we need to have?
Man, what's crazy is, hopefully, I think we'll see over the next 6 months or so. It hasn't been a ton of music released because everybody had to kind of go into scramble mode, and generally speaking, in the industry, you release music and then you got to get out there and support it, and you do that by doing performances or doing signings or other kind of appearances, and we can't do that right now. So a lot of people haven't really released music, but I think over the next 6 months or so we'll see, and hopefully the music will reflect the times, which is what it's supposed to always do. Like that's the greatest music that we have to listen to today was birthed out of, something, and it's reflective of whatever that something was. So you got the James Browns and like I'm Black and I'm Proud, like that's still like one of my favorite songs, but when you listen to it, you feel everything else that was going on, during that time. So hopefully, next 6 months to a year, the music that we will get will be reflective of what we're going through. What I can say for right now, which has been dope to watch, is like they call it the versus effect, right? Like Timbaland and Swiss, this versus thing they've been doing. It's been cool to see how music has kind of been healing in that way. Like when people getting together and they really just more celebrating their catalogs and calling it, a competition. But it's just cool to see like Snoop and DMX in the same room, and celebrating each other. 2 Chainz and Rick Ross ain't trying to be 2 gangsters in the room. They really in there just being, 2 bosses in a room and playing their music and just, and seeing how many people are tuning into it. That lets me know.
It's almost one of those moments too. It's like you can have a conversation. You can even meet with your friends. Like, hey, you guys are catching that versus tonight. Yeah. It's almost this moment where you're like, I was there. I was there when Snoop went against DMX. I was there, when Beanie Man. You know what I mean? So it creates these moments that otherwise, like you said, would be there if there was some live show to go to, a concert to go to. It's been very healing in that way and giving people something back. know, that we've obviously lost during these times.
Yep. And just the interaction lets me know that people need it, you know. So that's been really cool. And even like DJ D Nice, like watching how his numbers just exploded. But it's like he just playing feel good music for a couple hours, and people are at home soaking that up. So I'm like, man, people really needing that. So it's been cool to watch music fill the void in that way. So hopefully the new music that we get out of this will be some classics, you know.
Yeah, it's been fervent ground for a lot of creativity. I can speak for myself. You know, I launched this podcast during these pandemic times, so you know, it's a time to kind of pause and reflect and kind of, you know, reevaluate. Okay, what am I doing? Where am I going? And how can I get there? You know, a lot of time to kind of really think and process. So, like you said, I'm really looking forward to the creativity on the other side, whether it's music, movies. I'm a big movie buff. I can't wait to see what kind of projects come out of that as well. So, you know, it's not all bad, I guess, you know.
I'm excited to see this Judas and the Black Messiah movie.
Yes, isn't that who's directing that one?
Sheesh, I forgot who was directing it, but I know Lakeith Stanfield is in it, and the guy from Get Out, I forget his name, the British.
Oh yeah, the Fred Hampton.
Fred Hampton movie.
I think I saw a trailer and how they had Lakeith. Was it Lakeith that's playing the mole? It's got to be something when you go in not knowing what you're dealing with. And I think over the course of that trailer, he started to believe in what Fran Hampton, the message that he was relaying. And now you're fighting with yourself like, oh, okay, I'm indebted to these agents, but I really believe in this cause. That's gonna be quite a movie to see.
It's gonna be a good story. Even though we know the story, but I think it's gonna be an interesting view on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh man, well, hey, you know, it's been a huge pleasure, you know, having you on. You know, I really appreciate you blessing the platform, you know, and to all the rebels out there, please check out, you know, his music and his projects. You know, Heard Not Seen, Soul Sessions, the new music he's dropping. I think you'd be very surprised and excited about all the different projects you have going on. You know, and again, I really thank you for hanging out with us, and everyone out there listening, you know, please take the time to, you know, subscribe and, you know, like this podcast. We drop new episodes every week, every Thursday on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and all the other platforms that you like to enjoy your favorite podcast. So from me, Nate, you know, we'll see you next time, and please stay rebellious.